Hi everyone, I'm on Charlemont Street in Dublin. Today I want to speak about a meeting that took place behind the doors of those offices in 1 Charlemont Square yesterday between one of the world's richest men, Michael Bloomberg, the 18th richest man in the world with a net wealth of over $104 billion, and of course Paschal Donohue, Ireland's Minister for Finance and the head of the Eurogroup. Now, they were opening new offices of Bloomberg, who are going to be located here in 1 Charlemont Square. Up to 150 people are going to be employed, and it's going to be more people employed here than Geneva, Berlin and Paris, according to Bloomberg. Now, he spoke about the growth in the Irish financial industry, and he said in 2015 there was 35,000 people employed, now there's 52,000 people employed. And of course Bloomberg are heavily invested in the financial industry in terms of the software and many more aids they give to their very rich pals, the private equity companies as well. And he also spoke about Ireland as being a fantastic place for future growth for multinationals. He said there's other corporations like Google, Microsoft, Facebook have the European headquarters in Ireland again. Ireland is one of the most heavily neoliberalised countries across the world, and not to mention all the non-government organisations as well. Many will be funded through organisations like Bloomberg, Philanthropies, and these companies as well that pursue many of the agendas of the globalists. And of course, Bloomberg is a man of the WEF as well, and he said he's looking for political stability for investing. That's what it's all about. And of course, Paschal Donohue was all too willing to concur with him, and he said that he wants more and more investment in Ireland, of course the multinational investment. But it's interesting when you consider Ireland's become a tax haven. We know the effective rate of corporation tax as well in Ireland is about 6 to 7%, well below the headline figure of 12.5%. We see the GDP figures going off the charts with the leprechaun economics, with the export-led multinational growth as well. And again, it's driving more inequality. But what's happening is people like Bloomberg are coming to Dublin, benefiting from the inequalities and benefiting from the hyper-capitalism that takes place in Ireland in terms of the neoliberal policies and facilitated by the political establishment. And it's fascinating when you look at the building behind me. This is owned by McGarrell and O'Reilly, and this was on ex-public land. I did a video a number of months ago on Charlemont Street, walk through, and I'll add a link in the comments below about Charlemont Street, about the gentrification and evictions of working class communities in Charlemont Street. And also, interesting enough, during the times of lockdowns when many builders were told to stop working, this went ahead because all the multinationals were demanding that this would go ahead. And of course, who does it benefit? Who benefited during the lockdowns? Biggest transfer of wealth towards the billionaires, towards the very rich at the same time. And of course, Bloomberg is all too willing to come to Ireland to double down on those policies. And he said Brexit as well was a disaster for Britain. Of course, he would say that, being a key globalist. But of course, he had his own political career in New York, and he was heavily involved in evicting much of the working class communities from New York, benefiting his private equity pals, much the same his software benefits all those private equity pals in behind the doors of this plush building on Charlemont Street. And of course, he changed the rules where he became a 3-time mayor of New York as well. And of course, it's easy to change the rules when you're part of the ruling classes and one of the richest men in the world. And of course, he flipped sides as well, from Republican to Democrat, Democrat to Republican. So essentially it's a uniparty system, as we all know, in the United States. And again, as I said, they're pushing this agenda towards the mass immigration, towards the issues around benefiting their very rich pals. And he spoke about the financial industry in Ireland, that it's grown by about 50 to 60% in the last 10 years, where there's over 52,000 people employed. But a lot would be employed would come from overseas in terms of mobility of labour, which puts pressure as well on house prices. Yesterday we saw house prices increasing by 12%, and quite a few are big investors buying them, but also there's also non-Irish citizens buying those properties as well, but there's no restrictions on non-Irish citizens buying properties in Ireland. So it's just wide open to what's taking place in Irish society. We need to take power back to our country and serve the needs of our citizens. And we consider the history up here. Up the road was where Kathleen Lynn set up the St. Ultan's Hospital, which was a fantastic hospital to stand up, and Madeleine French Mullen also to set up the hospital for the poor and working class of Dublin well over 100 years ago, people that were left behind. But again, The working class here in Charlemont Street are completely left behind and have been neglected by the political establishment, who have sold off so much of our public land to big private developers, private equity companies, and now we have Bloomberg situating their offices here, working with their private equity friends, working with their friends at big finance, and benefiting them at the expense of ordinary people, and funneling more money upwards away from basic services and facilities that working class communities in particular need in and around Dublin. And this can be replicated in terms of the lower tax take and the less amount that's going into public services right around the country. But Donohue yesterday doubled down on all these comments and said that they should fully support this. And he also spoke about the issue of having a sovereign wealth fund and having record tax receipts and surplus. They're running the surplus with €8.5 billion in Ireland, and he estimates with the two sovereign wealth funds about 15 billion, not to mention the big amount of national debt that they're sending off every day towards the bondholders and those private equity friends of Bloomberg across Europe again. And of course he would say Brexit wasn't a good idea. Brexit did represent the interests of the financial powers of the City of London, but it's fundamentally about taking control of your own policy of your country, and that's not happening through the neoliberal European Union and more centralised control through the European Union, where top-down diktats, you're having over 70% of the policies come through the lobbyists, and at the same time we have organisations here like the IDA and Enterprise Ireland who work with these multinationals to benefit them, to give them low tax to come into Ireland, and of course a mobile, flexible workforce, and of course political stability. But of course the unions would say nothing about this, and ordinary people are the ones that suffer because of these policies. We have to take power back and stand up against these parasites in society who are just absolutely just criminals and rotten to the core in terms of policies they're enacting, working with their big friends and extracting more money upwards in society, extracting the wealth from the people who need it. So thanks a lot for the support of my videos, really appreciate them, and please subscribe to my channel. And I'll add a link to the video on Charlemont Street in the comments below as well. So from Dublin, take care. Slán.